What's up? What's happening? You know the sound. You know what it is. Boston has entered the chat. I'm George Balekji in the PNC Bank studio. She's Natalie Noury joining me today. We got a full show for you guys. Remember, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or Amazon Prime, please like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast. If you're watching on Nesson's YouTube, hit the subscribe button. And at any moment, you want to pick up the phone, call in, voice your opinion on that as well, 617-790-0928, or email us, thechat@nesson.com, to join the chat and join the conversation. Natalie, how are we doing today?
Doing well, George. It was a long weekend, but holiday weekend, so it's been extremely busy up here in the Lakes region, but it's been nice, beautiful weather. I'm ready for the cooler temperatures. I don't know about you, but this is the time of year that I get really excited for sports.
What's a region called? The Lakes region?
Yeah, this is the Lakes region of like New Hampshire. That's what we call it.
I love it. No, I love it.
It's Yeah, it's like a culmination of like Lake Winnipesaukee, Lake Winnisquam, Squam Lake, Newfound Lake, and it's like the one place that probably all of our listeners have been to at least one time in their life. So I'm lucky to live here full time. I live right across from a ski resort, so it just gets better. But yeah, we deal with a lot of tourism, a lot of traffic, but it's a lot of fun.
What do you guys call the tourists? Like, I'm a toonie in Charlestown. What do you guys call the tourists that come up?
You said a toonie?
Yeah, in Charlestown, there's the townies that are from there. And then there are the toonies, or the people like me that come in and, make it my home. I'm respectful of the townies. Okay. I love the townies.
Yeah, you know what? A lot of the terms up here are probably a little more derogatory to share than on Boston has entered the chat.
Smart.
You know what? I welcome them all. I have a lot of family from outside of state. They all come and visit. So they're just tourists for now, but they keep things running up here. That's for
all
sure.
Right, tourist is a nice way to put it. We got a packed show for you guys today. We'll go through what's trending as always. Also, the Patriots named their captains ahead of their Week 1 opener when they go to Cincinnati this Sunday. So we'll get into who the captains are, and we'll go through on who we think should have been a captain as well. We also talk about the White Sox losing a franchise record 107th game. Not really going to talk about how bad the White Sox are because you guys know that, but what are the most embarrassing sports accomplishments we've ever seen? And we've gone through the top 10 goalies. We've gone through the top 10 blue liners. Now we'll get into the top 10 wingers in the NHL as NHL Network put out their most recent list as well. But let's get into what's trending. We know the Patriots are playing the Bengals this Sunday in Cincinnati. We don't know if they'll be matching up and facing Ja'Marr Chase because most recent practice on Monday, Ja'Marr Chase did not participate and was not dressed, just wearing street clothes at practice. And with a report coming from Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, he said that, quote, "My understanding is that the two sides are still discussing a long-term extension that, if he got it, would make him either tied for the highest paid receiver with Justin Jefferson or beating Justin Jefferson by 1 cent, which I believe is the goal by Ja'Marr Chase." Natalie, I hear this, and I just want to remind the owner of the Bengals, their name escapes me right now, and they're lucky for that because they have always been one of the cheapest owners in all of pro sports. They've been cheap with their stadium. They've been cheap with their facilities. They've been cheap with player contracts. And them being cheap right now is going to bite them in the ass because if they just went out and paid Ja'Marr Chase right away, I always say is with all these contracts, it's all about timing. It's not about being the highest paid. It's about being the last one to get paid. If they got this deal done before Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb got signed, they would only have to give him around $80 million, maybe $75 million guaranteed. But now he wants more than $140 million in total value and more than $110 million in guaranteed. Reap what you sow. The Bengals are cheap. It's petty of Ja'Marr Chase, but I don't mind it because if they just got this deal done earlier, then he would want like $80 million and 1 cent instead of $110 million and 1 cent.
Right. And he's got 2 years left still on his rookie deal, but he's like, now's as good a time as ever to get this thing rolling. And I think, I read somewhere that, it's not a great time, according to the team, to negotiate. All they want to do right now is focus on football, focus on practice, focus on getting better every week, focus on the Patriots. They don't want to be dealing with this right now, according to them. But Ja'Marr Chase, I think he's pushing the envelope here. It's exactly what he's doing, actually. He's like, hey, let's get this going and let's top it. 1 cent extra, which I don't think that's too hard to do. But that would also bring him the notoriety of being the highest paid receiver in NFL history. It is a little petty, but it is a way to get your name on the map. It is a way to get the team on the map. And I think it's a good way for him to kind of negotiate on his own.
Yeah, the Browns, that's the owner of the Bengals. Yeah, cheapest family in all of pro sports, in my opinion. I mean, Yeah, I think it's petty. I think it's dumb. But also, if they want to focus on football, they can't focus on football until their second best player is on the field. They got Joe Burrow signed. They got him a new offensive line. Just give Jamar Chase the money. And then you can take whatever you give him and restructure it from a base salary into a signing bonus because you believe in him and he'll get you that money no matter what. You're right. He has 2 years left, like entering the 4th year of his rookie deal. But this is when they can sign extensions before they even get into the 4th year and before that 5th year can possibly get picked up. So he would still play 4th and 5th year. He would sign the extension, but it's all about guaranteed money for these guys. So everyone looks at that $140 million total value. For him, he should be going for, and the 1 cent thing, dude, screw it. Go for $110 million and $100,000. That's what you want. $110 million and $100,000 guaranteed. Get that. Get the guaranteed money for the next 4 years. That's a pretty penny. That's almost $30 million a year that he would be making just off guaranteed alone. Then you bring in the total value. I read this, I laugh. I mean, like, get the deal done, but it's not on Jamar Chase. It's on the Browns. And if they did this earlier, the same thing I said about Jerry Jones, if he got that CeeDee Lamb contract done earlier, he wouldn't have had to give him $100 million guaranteed. He could have given him 80, maybe $83 million based off that DJ Moore extension he signed with the Bears. But they let Justin Jefferson get signed. They saw that massive number, especially in the signing bonus, and now they all have to bite the bullet. You're going to pay Jamar Chase. Pay him now. It's because it looks like he will not play until he gets paid. It's all about guaranteed money for these guys as they put their body on the line. Again. The Browns just being cheap as hell. Hate to see it, so I don't mind Jamar Chase being petty. All right, let's talk about the Giants now. This video was deleted from the Giants Instagram page. Can't believe it, but newly acquired pass rusher, Brian Burns, who's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. They were going through a video and they were saying if you like the smell of gas, talking about gasoline. They got to Brian Burns and he said he likes the smell of his own farts. I got nothing. And my thought process was, I mean, if you have a good diet, they don't smell that bad. I get tolerating it. I get like, oh, that's bad, but like, oof. But like for him to say he likes it, like that's just a different type of weird to me.
You're right. And like maybe you could think about the nutritional aspect of things. Like, okay, this means you're healthy, I guess. But like to say that, you know what? Kudos to him for owning this because this is like a subject that is just not talked about in general, unless I assume you're a dude in a locker room. I know that we never did when we were females in a locker room, but I don't know. Good for him for saying that. I think it's gross. It kind of makes me cringe. I don't have much to add to this either, but I think for him to take it out of context, but to stand by that and say it, it's kind of funny. I don't mind the smell of gasoline, like boat gasoline, car gasoline. It's not that bad, but, this guy, he's bringing some more attention to himself in an unexpected way with this one.
I'll tell you, it's never been a subject of conversation. It'll be like, the farts smell bad, but it's not like, do your farts smell good? I've never spoken about that with my buddies. Yeah, I just think of like, maybe, but still like at best, like farts smell like for me, like a cheesesteak and creatine mix, like nothing that great where I'm not like, oh, I like that. Let me watch. Like, this is just weird for him to say he likes it. But what's going to come out of this is like a company, maybe like Pepto or Tums or maybe Beano, like something with farts and having gas. He's going to get an endorsement out of this. And it's all going to be great. Shoot, maybe like an air filter company, like that would put air filters in your room or a locker room or wherever. Like maybe he'll end up getting a deal with that. What's that?
You have an air filter right on your desk, don't you?
I do. You know me. I don't care that it definitely doesn't work in the size of the Nessa newsroom, but if the air directly by me and the people around me, because I have our coworkers here on the podcast, we're all in, the same part of the office. If it makes our air better, I'm all for it. But I don't have that, Natalie. I know what you're trying to accuse me of. I don't have that because I rip ass in the office. I do not do that. I never would. If it's that bad, you go for a walk. Those are the simple rules. There's etiquette. There's etiquette. That's etiquette I will not break. All right, sticking. One more football story. We'll get back to the Patriots. Something a little more normal here. Keon White posted on his Instagram pictures of him mountain climbing in Iceland. And this has Patriots fans scared. Now, I assume these photos are during the offseason because there's no way he had the time during training camp to go from Foxborough and Gillette, fly to Iceland, go mountain climbing, because it's either you're in OTAs, you're in minicamp, you're in training camp, or now you're getting ready for the season, even with one less preseason game. Nonetheless, I don't blame Patriots fans for getting scared as hell, seeing Now, their best defensive lineman and one of the best players on their defense going mountain climbing. Ballsy move by him. I've never been mountain climbing. I've never been to Iceland. But I assume a guy that is making NFL money, albeit a rookie scale contract, he was able to pay for some quality guidance, rocket climbing, and quality equipment, so he was okay.
And you know what is with everyone going to Iceland lately? I don't know. I opened up my feed today and I had 2 more friends post that they were in Iceland. It looks like a beautiful place, but what you're mentioning, yes, he probably went there during the summer and, he got to enjoy this. It looks absolutely beautiful there. I want to go to Iceland so bad. I heard that it's expensive once you get there, but very affordable to get there. So not too bad there, but, one thing I wanted to bring to your attention is not only were some of the comments saying like, hey man, be safe out there, we need you. The other half of people were like, oh, this is great. Like he's living. So they were like, big year incoming, like breakout season, 20 plus sack season incoming. What do you think about that? Do you think if you're taking the time to enjoy your life and get out and vacation and all that stuff, it brings you back in a stronger form? Mentally, maybe?
I can't see the core. Yeah, I guess a mentality of getting away from football, getting an escape, maybe has you more refreshed where like you actually did something with your off season. So you're not as, what's the word I'm looking for? You're not as pissed off to be back at your work, albeit, I mean, he's a pro athlete, but like the football season's a long season. Like you get your butt kicked all week. You only play once a week and the team he's going to be on, they're only going to win 4 or 5, maybe 6 games at most. I mean, rock climbing, mountain climbing in this one, I mean, it definitely helps with his strength. It definitely helps with like all around, like just building up that endurance. And it's a different type of workout, which I like. I'm just big on there's risk reward in everything you do. I knew it growing up. Football season started. You put the skateboards away. You put the bikes away. You put the basketball away. You didn't do anything outside of football that would get you hurt. We know guys like Myles Garrett, who's awesome at basketball, play pickup ball. The Browns are like, you're done with that. No more of that. We know with other athletes. I'm sure there's a talk coming from the Patriots of, and this is tough, if it's in the offseason, and again, it's not the language in his contract. This is a guy that should get a 2nd and 3rd contract from the Pats. I'm sure there'll be language in there like, hey, you're important now. You're getting paid.
Right.
You cannot do things like this unless it's without prior approval from the team. But hey, good for him. Like you said, people out there saying he went out, lived his best life. I can't hate on it. Go to Iceland, man. I like it. Yeah. A well-rounded Keon White, world-traveling Keon White. I like to see it.
Looks cool. Yeah, that looks awesome.
Mountain climbing, though, I don't like. It's tough to get me to go anywhere cold. I need beaches. Like I need sun. Yeah. But like so, Iceland. Opposite. Yeah, your mountains. I know you went to Banff. Like I do want to go there, but I need to mix in Banff with like a beach somewhere. That's it. I need my sunlight.
Well, you know what? It was funny because I went there in June, July, and it was like 40 degrees in the morning, but it would be like 70 degrees during the day. And that was beautiful to me. Still a little chilly, but I like that. But I don't know. You can find a happy medium, George. You can do it.
I'll look for it and I'll keep you posted. You let me know. Banff, though, is definitely on my bucket list. All right, let's get to the Patriots team captains. Patriots announced on Monday center David Andrews, linebacker Juwan Bentley, starting quarterback Jacoby Brissett, defensive end Deatrich Wise, safety Jabrill Peppers, and long snapper Joe Cardona as their team captains. First time in franchise history, they'll actually wear the C patch on their jerseys. What do you think of these picks? I honestly loved it. I know people laugh at Cardona. For Joe Cardona, I say you need a special teams captain, especially with Matt Slater, now a coach and not a player. You need that. It's important. There's 3 phases of football: offense, defense, special teams. Cardona is a vet. I don't mind him being a captain. But the other guys in the picks, I like it. I would have loved to see like a Kyle Duggar, another young leader. But Jabrill Peppers is a leader of the secondary and someone all around that's a tone setter in that locker room. So I do love these picks.
Yeah, I think Peppers is funny, first of all. Like, we've heard him on the mic. We've heard him just fire the guys up. He's electric out there. I think it's cool to see you have a couple of first-time captains, but then a handful of returning captains as well. And I think who's returning, obviously, you look at Andrews, you look at Wise, you look at Bentley. I think this is a core group of people who you want out there being a voice for the team, leading the team. I think Cardona is interesting, kind of funny, but like he's also a great man, like on and off the field too. You look at that kind of leadership, not only with the team, but in the community as well. He has a Salute to Service award. He's been there for years, almost a decade. I think that he's kind of a nice voice to have. And again, you have to remember that the team is the ones the team is the ones who pick these captains. And Gerard Mayo said, hey, I think they should have the vote. I think they should determine. He said, I don't want 8 captains. I want a core group of guys who know the team, who can lead the team well. And I think this is a really nice lineup of people to be a voice on all sides of the ball.
Yeah, I think it's smart. I saw the Bears put out their captains. I think they literally have 10 guys. And there comes a point you need to know who the voices are in the rooms, who to go to. And you can only have so many opinions when you need true leadership, who's going to be that guy. David Andrews entering year 9. We know what he brings. Juwan Bentley, an older player, been with the Patriots for a long time. Not actually that old, but he's been there so long that we think he's older than what he is. I mean, a leader on the defense along with Peppers. Jacoby Brissett, I think your quarterback needs to be a captain. You need him to be a leader, especially being a leader on this offense. As Alex Van Pelt, Jacoby Brissett, those are the guys in charge of teaching the rest of the group on how to execute in this new West Coast offense, because it's not like there's a carryover where Drake Maye comes in, right? And he's the guy, him and Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. Those are the guys that have to learn the offense and the free agents. No, Jacoby Brissett's the only one out of the starting 11 players on offense that actually knows his playbook, him and Austin Hooper. Maybe there are guys, small overlaps. You need to be Jacoby. And that shows unity in the decision of him being QB1 of this guy's not just our best shot of winning games and our best chance of not losing them, but a leader on the field. And the way everyone talks about him in Jacoby Brissett, I mean, he should be a captain. Should Drake Maye be it? If he was a starter, sure. I wouldn't hate on it. I think a quarterback, you always need to be a leader, whether outspoken or quiet, but he's not the starter. And there's no way you could have Jacoby and Drake Maye as the team captains, because that just puts a weird dynamic. There's no way you could have Drake Maye be the captain and not Jacoby, because again, these guys are leaders. They have to make tough decisions. They have to be the voice in the locker room to get through to players when the coach's message is not resonating with them. So I just love all these picks. I would have liked to see maybe a second year guy like a Keon White, like a Christian Gonzalez, be one of these captains, like a City So, who's important as a left guard for this team, or maybe a Mike Onwenu. I know David Andrews checks that box up front for the offensive line, but I would just like to see more youth in the leadership, because Andrews, Wise, Bentley, Brissett, Peppers, Cardona, they're all veterans. But again, these are vets that can teach the younger guys how to come along and be captains.
No, and that's a really good point. And I think Gerard Mayo is trying to play this right as it is, his first year doing this. He wants to make sure he does it correctly. And like we mentioned, there's a couple returning captains and a couple of new names on the captain slip here. But I think right now what they have is like a safe group, a group that they can trust, a group that they can count on. I think getting back to Jacoby Brissett, I think the whole point that they kind of brought him in was to be a mentor, be a leadership role for the quarterbacks, especially someone like Drake Maye, who maybe will be a captain down the line, just not now. But I think that does reflect the idea of the team right now. Hey, what's good for the team right now is kind of what we need to focus on. We want to think about the short term and the long term, and the group that they named. You mentioned a couple names that you'd like to see. Maybe that could be a next year discussion. But I think this is a good group of guys. I think it's well rounded, and I think Jacoby Brissett as a captain is something that I completely expected. I don't know about you, but I think that was kind of the whole reason that they kind of brought him on, and then just kind of gave him the C on top of it. So I think that's great.
I like to see, too, maybe by next year, like a Jalen Polk stepping up and being a captain, a second-year receiver at that point. I think he's going to be vital for this offense. And, again, a voice in that room, in the receivers room, that can be a leader. We saw Javon Baker putting up the Instagram Live video, being pissed off because he got pulled over and cop gave him a ticket. And then Gerard Mayo came out and said, that will be dealt with. It's immaturity. We're not okay with that. He will be, disciplined for it, just not suspended from any games. But there are vital rooms within this team that need leaders. And certainly in that wide receivers room, you need a leader at that point too. I think Jalen Polk can be that guy. I think a Kendrick Bourne can be that guy, but it's just a question of his availability. He won't be there for the team the first 4 weeks. I like these picks. And again, these picks and whoever it may be next season should look vastly different than it is this season. Even a guy like Hunter Henry, a captain last year, first time in his career, not a captain this year, but again, that's voted on the team. And what's important with this team too is a guy like Hunter Henry doesn't need that C patch on his jersey to be one of the leaders in the meeting rooms, in the locker room, on the field, and in this offense. There are guys like that are natural leaders. Gerard Mayo had his pick. I bet there's a lot of guys from defense and guys like Hunter that he knew, but they come out and they vote on it. I think it's important to see a quarterback, your QB1, and Jacoby Brissett be one of those captains. It is cool to see, first time in franchise history, they'll actually wear the C patch too. And it didn't dawn on me the Patriots don't wear it. I don't know if every NFL team does, But I think it's just a cool thing. You earned that title. It is something to be had. You wear that C patch. We know how significant it is in hockey, which I love. You have the C and then you have the A patches for, captain, assistant, alternate captains. We see it for some college football teams. They'll have a C on their jersey as well. But I just love seeing this from the Patriots too. Again, this is the shift. Like, never happened when Brady was there. And that's a Belichick thing. Gerard Mayo, year one, his little imprints on the team of, you earned to be voted on by your peers to be a captain. Here's a C patch, wear it with honor.
I definitely think it's a sign of accountability too, because when you look down and you see that your jersey is slightly different than the rest in the locker room, and you can see that you have that letter there for a reason, it is only there because your teammates wanted it to be there, then you need to kind of live up to that. Like they always say, the name on the front is a lot more important than the one on the back. Obviously, powerful quote there, but the C also plays into that if you're a captain. And I think it's kind of cool that Gerard Maye wanted to bring that back this year because, he is trying to make these small imprints on the team. He is trying to change things a little bit. He knows how important the build is right now, the rebuild, the transition to a new face of Patriots football. I think by doing this, we will see a lot of accountability when it comes to leadership in the locker room. But I think it's just a nice way to remind the team as well that your teammates are looking to you. They count on you. They trust you. So let's do our best job that we can to get this team in shape and to do what we were voted to do.
Reminder, check out the latest episode of Foxborough Rush wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime. We're also on YouTube and Twitch. Just search Nesson on YouTube, go to the page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, but then go to the podcast playlist. You'll find Rush. You'll find Boston's Enter the Chat, Extra Time, Respect Your Game, 310 to Left, Hold My Banner. Find them all right there wherever you get your podcast. All right, we're going to talk a little baseball, Natalie. White Sox lost a franchise record 107th game of the season when they lost to the Mets on Sunday. This is one of the worst Major League Baseball teams in recent memory. I just think of how bad the Tigers and the Orioles were recently. But this, more importantly, this was a 93-win team in 2021 with Tim Anderson, with Jose Abreu, Yohan Moncada, Luis Robert Jr., with Dylan Cease on the mound. To get to this point where they've gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. The Jerry Reinsdorf effect, but they keep on getting worse. It's just a joke of a ball club at this point. This is so bad. 107 losses and September just began, which is like absurd to think of.
And it's really unfortunate because how do you keep your team bought in when things like this just continue to happen? You mentioned they had a good season in the past. And now they are in the conversation of just negativity, all negativity. I mean, and it's sad to see how much they've struggled. Obviously, they've had a few losing streaks this season, and they've worked to snap a few of those, and then they just get right back into it. But their pitching is tough. They have one of the worst ERAs in baseball right now, pitching wise. They have a hard time getting on base. They have a hard time scoring runs. So they're just not generating that offense, but they also defensively are having a hard time just kind of like leading those defensive moments starting from the pitcher out. And I think what's just disappointing about this again is just like as a team, you think about some of the hardest moments for sports and athletes. I remember my college basketball team went like 3-24 one year, and just talking to them, they were like, it's so hard to go to practice because we're kind of unmotivated. We're not really seeing the product. Even though we're playing well, we're not winning games. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So it's just kind of unfortunate to see. And think about Andrew Benintendi there too. I mean, he's playing some of his best baseball in some of the worst moments. So former Red Sox player there, obviously we feel for him.
Yeah, especially going from Boston to Kansas City, played good baseball both stops. Those cities, those fan bases that are so passionate about their baseball. Going to Chicago, like no one's showing up for the games. And that's what I thought of too, of like, to suck at any sport, but to suck at baseball and have a bad season like this has to be the worst because it is every single day. You'll play 10 games in 10 days. You'll be traveling. You have to go to the ballpark. And part of this is just how long it is. I mean, it is an absolute marathon from March until the end of September. You're dealing with this losing. You're hearing it every day. And then when you show up to work, I mean, you're just getting your ass kicked or you're playing in front of empty ballparks. Like that, I do feel for the players in this. But it's just, again, a reflection of poor management and a reflection of poor ownership. When going back to the Tony La Russa hire, which made 0 sense with such a young, talented roster. Like I said, that 93-win team of Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu, Dylan Cease, Yohan Moncada, all those guys, a young, talented roster. And you bring in Tony La Russa, who's like 98 years old. And obviously that never worked out and that ended terribly. And then you go into another manager, keep him too long. Now it's Grady Sizemore. It's just the missteps all the way. You get zero investment from ownership, zero buy-in from the leaders that you need it from. You see it equate to 107 losses. I mean, how they're going to get through September, it gets to that point, and it was well before now, but it's going to get to that point of like, just get me to the other side, get me to the offseason, get me the hell away from this baseball stadium and this ball club. Because for these guys and how grueling baseball is, to what you have to work, you have to put in a year-round sport now, whether they went college or they went right to the minors, whether they went to JUCO, made the jump to D1 and worked their way up from single to AAA and finally get to MLB. And it just stinks. Like, I just feel for the athletes that are in this spot of how taxing that is mentally and not just physically on this. Like, yes, they get paid to play baseball, but again, the people that get paid to structure a team to win, not doing that job, that's what sticks out to me. It had me thinking too of like, it's just the embarrassment that it has to be of like taking the field every day. There's like the 0-16 Lions, 0-16 Browns. Just like there's certain records in sports you don't want to be a part of. This is what it is for the White Sox. I even think of like David Carr sacked 76 times in a season, just got his ass kicked, and it affected his development down the road as a quarterback. What are some of those records you think of in sports like that just you would never want to be a part of?
Well, one we were talking about just before the show started, I think this one was kind of funny to begin with. Ron Hextall, I think to this day, has the leading amount of penalty minutes of a goaltender in the NHL. And I think this is kind of hilarious in a way. It's not like, as a goaltender, you don't want to be a part of this stat, obviously, because as a goaltender, you're supposed to lead the team in a different way. You're kind of their last line of defense before, the game turns. And I think for him, what's been funny is I even remember the Beanpot this year. It was Gwyneth Phillips got a penalty from, I don't know, pushing someone out of the crease there. And I thought it was hilarious. I asked her about it, and she's like, it's a fun game. It was fun to be a part of the action in that regard. But if you're leading penalty minutes as a goaltender, I think that's a mark that works against you. So I don't think teams would look at you and say, hey, that's a valuable goaltender. I think they'd look at you and say that's probably pretty problematic.
Yeah, it's a liability at that point.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's always fun to see the fighting in hockey, but you definitely don't want to add those stats up too much. I think some other things that stands out to me, there was a Diamondbacks record, I think in 2009, most strikeouts recorded in one season, 223 that belonged to Mark Reynolds. That's a tough one to work against you too. You don't want to strike out because that's just a good moment for the pitcher, good moment for the team. Works against you. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, you just can't give up at bats about that. I thought of Brett Favre's career interception record, NFL record, 336 interceptions. He was a gunslinger. He was famous for it. But 336, man, that is so much. And then you think of guys like Tom Brady, barely turned the ball over, what the true GOATs are. Yeah. And it's important. You take care of the football. As flashy, as exciting as Brett Favre was for the Packers and even the Vikings, and at some point the Jets, when he had good football left in him, those just dumb interceptions he's had, I mean, that's what made him fun to watch. He's a gunslinger from Mississippi, but 336 interceptions, like, as a quarterback, that is not okay. Yeah, that is just terrible.
And as a quarterback, you want your team to trust you and count on you and believe in you. So those moments, that's tough. That's hard to get notoriety within the team, within the locker room. You don't want to be treated any differently because of it. Something else that I actually just checked on, and this is a little more local. We're going to talk a little bit of Woo Sox baseball here, but a stat that the Worcester Red Sox lead in this year in particular, they lead AAA in being hit by a pitch 89 times so far this season. New Red Sox AAA record too. Thank you, Bill Wanless, for texting me back so quickly with that. But being hit by a pitch, that's something I heard on the broadcast the other day, and I was like, that's so weird. It's crazy. It's not something that you can sometimes they might get in the way a little bit, but I don't know. That stat isn't anything to write home about.
I get it. You're getting on base. You're taking one for the team. There's interesting stats, interesting records, right? That's a good one to be a part of, doing what's best for the team in that instance. Man, still 107 losses for the White Sox. Just insane to me. Hey, remember, you could call in to Boston has entered the chat. 617-790-0928. 617-790-0928. Leave us a voicemail with the take you want to air on Boston has entered the chat. We'll run it. Or email us, thechat@nesson.com. and join the conversation yourself as well. All right, let's get into NHL Network ranking their top 10 wingers in the NHL right now. So we'll go 10-1 on this one. 10, Mitch Marner of the Leafs. You can say what you want about any Maple Leaf in the playoffs. Mitch Marner in the regular season is special. 9, Sam Reiner with the Panthers. 8, William Nylander with the Leafs again. 7, Kirill Kaprizov with the Wild. 6, Jason Robertson. 5, Artemi Panarin with the Rangers. 4, David Pastrnak with the Bruins. 3, Mikko Rantanen with the Avs. 2, Matthew Tkachuk with the Panthers. Number 1, Nikita Kucherov, 31-year-old Nikita Kucherov with the Lightning. I can't disagree with that one spot. Kucherov coming off an 144-point season. 4th time he recorded 100 points in an NHL season too. Kucherov with the Lightning is just unreal. There's some parts in this list. I think Pastrnak should be higher, but I can't disagree with Kucherov being in that one spot.
No, and I think you're right about that, and I think that would kind of be a unanimous opinion as well, to have Nikita Kucherov in the number 1 spot. What's kind of funny, my best friend growing up, she just got a dog a few years ago, and her fiance, husband now, actually just named their dog Kita after Nikita Kucherov. They're from Boston, from Massachusetts, and I was like, what's the fascination with Kucherov? And he's like, he's just good. I wanted to name my dog after Nikita Kucherov. So funny there. But, I mean, you can't dispute. He's a playmaker. He's threatening on the power play. 5-on-5, he's a spark plug. It was great to see what he was doing with Steve Stamkos, but it's going to be even more interesting, I think, now to see how he makes those adjustments without him. I don't think he's going to have to adjust too much because he's a standalone great player. One of the best in the game right now. Cannot dispute it. I think he's threatening out there. I love it. I love watching him.
We'll see what the Lightning do. Obviously, Stamkos gone, but Jake Gensel steps in. Again, another wing. Even Gensel himself, they did top 20. Gensel ranked 16th. That surprised me. I think he's so much better than that. We saw how important he was for the Hurricanes and their success, how good he was when he got traded even. And I thought he would stick to after the trade deadline being dealt. But Gensel just with the Lightning and how good he was going from Pittsburgh to Carolina, how good he was for Carolina. I thought that was a move that pushed him over the top. Now with the Lightning, I think he's better than 16, especially with the Kyle Connor, Philip Forsberg in front of him. Stamkos, 34 years old, now with the Preds, still at 13. But I would put a Gensel ahead of a Stamkos. I would put him ahead of a Brady Tkachuk. And then another one, Zach Hyman, 11th for the Edmonton Oilers. Now I get it. You're playing with Leon Draisaitl. You're playing with Connor McDavid. But for him to change his game, just as Connor McDavid did, I mean, you're playing off McDavid going from being a goal scorer to assisting instead to make that happen. But 3rd in the NHL with 54 goals, 7 game-winning goals, led the playoffs with 16 goals, 22 points in 25 games. I mean, he was so superb that I push him into the top 10 just on what he did for the Oilers. Yes, playing with the most dominant player in the sport right now, but still, you have to pull through for that guy and you make him better. And he certainly did elevate the whole Oilers team with what Hyman was able to produce.
And I think that's a really interesting point that you just brought up. And it's like some people might say like your players are only as good as the players around you. And then you look at, Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov together. Someone who I was actually kind of dissecting for this was Artemi Panarin and the Patrick Kane effect that had on him when he was with the Chicago Blackhawks. I think when Panarin left, I think he had a chance to kind of show people what he was without Patrick Kane, without the Blackhawks. I think that first season out, I think he was a little slower, but then he started racking on the goals and he started making a name for himself and he really started defining why he is in the top 10 conversation. They had him ranked at number 5. I think in a way I would rank him a little bit lower, not because I don't like him, but I think there are so many very impressive names on this list. Someone I want to highlight is Kirill Kaprizov. I think he's an outstanding player, but unfortunately what works against him in this case is he's not on a constantly winning team. The Minnesota Wild are great. State of Hockey is wonderful. People are so passionate about their team there, but Kirill Kaprizov is someone who I actually would like to see another big name step into the team there to really try to see him take off even farther because he's so athletic. When you give him the puck on his stick and you give him a little time and space, what he's able to do, what he's able to create in those moments is really impressive. So in a way, I think I would switch Artemi Panarin at 5 and Kaprizov at 7 and just kind of swap those two.
Yeah, Artemi Panarin, career high 120 points at 32 years old. But you're right. I mean, he plays for a very talented Blue Shirts team. Adam Fox, Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, all those guys that he shares time on the ice with. Even Mikko Rantanen, again, we get into that conversation of who you're playing with. 104 points, playing off 140-point Nate McKinnon. Obviously, is Cal McCarr, a defenseman, but is such a threat in the offensive zone. What separates me from Mikko Rantanen, which I think he does get top 3, that's a guy almost playing 23 minutes a night. Like that many minutes for such a good team in the West. That's a separator for me. We know what Tkachuk means to that Panthers team for him to get that 2 spot. But I think I would. And that Panthers team is so special because they know how to play as 6 on the ice, especially the 5 guys knowing how to win and help out goalie Bob and get wins when they need to in the playoffs. But I would put Rantanen ahead of Tkachuk. But then you get to the Pasta conversation. Again, you bring it up with Kirill Kaprizov. I think the same thing with Pasta. Like, yes, this is a skilled Bruins team that is good offensively, but more of a gritty team. Now we'll see how they look with Lindholm in the mix to give them help. But David Pastrnak was the guy. He was the playmaker. He was the goal scorer. 110 points in 82 games. And after he had 113 points year prior to, just keeps up that play, playing almost 20 minutes a night. I think his game will take a step forward and he'll score even more, as crazy as it is to say, because of the Elias Lindholm effect. And we'll see what he can do with Pavel Zacha. But you pointed out with Kaprizov, which I agree with the Wild, like he's doing the most with the least. I feel like Pasta in a scoring way is doing that with the Bruins.
Yeah, and I you know what, there were some times last year where I think Pasta was looking for more from himself too. I'm sure some of those moments were frustrating in a way, but I think he is undoubtedly one of the best wingers in the NHL because he's great on the power play. First of all, just look at that first unit. He's great on the power play. It seems like he always delivers. He's great 5-on-5. We've always looked to him to be a goal scorer in big moments. And something I wanted to highlight, actually, I think it was so much fun watching him drop the gloves against Matthew Tkachuk. I thought that was the most unlikely duo of fighters that you could find in a hockey game. But first of all, that shows the effect that Matthew Tkachuk has playing against him. He's so frustrating. He's like a Brad Marchand in a way where you hate him if he's not on your team. Mm-hmm. He's frustrating to play against, but you love him if he's on your team. But I don't want to get too far away from Pasta. Pasta's great. I think Four is low for him, but there are so many other great players in the top 3 there that it's kind of hard to fight his way into that top 3. So in this stance, I think 4 is good for Pasta. But I did want to talk about that moment where he took one for the team and went out there against Tkachuk. I thought that was great.
Yeah, everyone's seeing that. Neither guy is a fighter. Tkachuk obviously wanted the smoke. And shout out to Pasta for stepping up and taking it. Pastrnak was number 1 on this list last year going into the season. Mm-hmm. But again, we saw what Kucherov put together. Tkachuk leading his team to a Stanley Cup. I mentioned, of course, what for the 3 spot with Mikko Rantanen. I mean, how much he scored, how much time on the ice for arguably the best team in the West, second best team in my opinion, in the Avs. Possibly the 4 spot, it's like a huge drop-off, you'd think, from 1 to 4. But the companies that is with him on the top is what you see. What do you think of Marchand on this list? Because it was top 20. Him getting in number 18. Do you think he's still a top 20 winger in the NHL?
I do think he is. And I tried to be as unbiased about this as I possibly could. But what stat really stood out to me, I mean, many of them do, but the fact is that he had one of the most shorthanded goals. I don't even know how many he scored last year, so I could find that in a second, but he was great on the PK. And I think that also kind of is a testament to his ability to play in all situations. I think he's gritty. He's small out there, so his center of gravity is a little lower. He's athletic. He might be getting a little older, but I don't think that's working against him right now. I think he does belong in this top 20 list. But I think, in years to come, it might be just his age that kind of starts to work against him in that sense. Yeah. But I think he's a great winger. Yeah,
he was important. With 3 shorthanded goals, he had 3 shorties this past season, and his 67 points, second most on the Bruins. The Bruins, a team that were one of the best in the East and made to the second round of the playoffs before losing to the eventual Stanley Cup champions. He's 36. I think he has like 2 or 3 more, maybe 4 years left in him. But yet we know he's on the back 9 of his career, but that back 9 still looks really good. And it's been a guy that had to recover from multiple hip surgeries from a couple seasons ago. So he's still piecing it together. And that's just a player. You say, like, what he does both ends on the ice, what he does in all facets of the game, too, on special teams as well. His drive, his determination, his grittiness. And he embraces being a rat. Like, Brad Marchand, with his Stanley Cup, with his World Cup of Hockey gold, with his multiple World Junior golds, his U18, IHF golds as well, like with all of that, he will be in the Hall of Fame one day. And this is a guy over 1,000 games played all with the Bruins, 929 career points. He'll get to that 1,000-point mark this season or next. Again, he had 67 last season. This is a guy that's going to be an eventual Hall of Famer. And he has been the second best right winger of his era, just behind Alexander Ovechkin. Ovechkin on this list, I believe, came in at 19. But you see that those two guys, out of the respect, they're still regarded as top 20 wingers in the league. Yes, on their back nine. Yes, their prime is behind them. But both can produce at such a high level. That Marchand, again, it's 67 points. People are like, well, it's not that much. But it's what he does on both ends of the ice. And again, a guy that's a captain for his team and embraces being a leader. Had to fill the shoes. Once Chara retired and left, once Patrice Bergeron retired, it was him up next to wear that C. That's a guy that embraces it and lives up to that as a leader.
No, and I think you're right about that. And it was actually, it's fun to see this year in particular. He was a rat. Like, he was super fun to watch. He was entertaining. He was comical. But I think when he graduated to this captainship position, it almost looked like he kind of, let the rattiness kind of take a step back. Instead, he was like, I'm the leader of this team. He's one of the last players to experience that 2011 Stanley Cup champion victory. I think he has a different perspective now. And he realizes in order to provide some longevity for this team, to bring it back to that championship culture, he's had to do these kinds of things. And maybe his points aren't speaking for themselves, but what he does, in the defensive zone, how he skates. I love watching him in transition, actually. How he skates is one of the things that I've always loved watching about him, because I just think he does it without thinking about it, as they all do. But I just think something about the way he does it is very artistic. So he can carry the puck once he gets into the O-zone. He can feed it off. He can take the chance himself. But I think he's done a really nice job, not only justifying why he's one of the best wingers in the game, but I think he's done a really nice job entering the veteran status of being a captain and leading this team in maybe a less ratty way.
Yeah, we've seen that shift from him, especially in the playoffs, where he can't be that guy that's always in the penalty box. He can't be that guy that's an instigator, because his team needs him on the ice and how big his impact is. But also, like, he has to step up as a true leader. Now, him being a rat, maybe that brings out the best of him, and he's learning how to walk that line and skate that line between being the rat but not putting his team in jeopardy, and also being a captain for the Bruins as well. I just think Marchand's been so good at that, and he has, all the game-winning goals he scores, the big moments. And you brought up, that Stanley Cup win against the Canucks back in 2011 when he was just finding his way into the league. But 7 points in that 7-game Stanley Cup series, steps up when the team needs it. It's kind of becoming a look back on Brad Marchand, the legacy. But obviously us being in Boston, we know how special he is. And he still carries that. My buddies that would text me that are Rangers fans, Devils fans, Kings fans, Blackhawks fans, Leafs fans, all that, and even Lightning's fans, they'll always text me I can't believe Marchand did this. And I never thought I would get to that point, but me being in Boston, especially the last 3 years, it goes, well, look at it this way. And you love it. If he's on your team, if he's playing for your city, you absolutely love him. And if he's playing against you, you absolutely hate him. And you know what? He wouldn't want it any other way either.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think that's why Matthew Tkachuk kind of fits the mold a little bit with that too. It's because he's a pain in the ass to play against, but you love him if he's on your team. And something that I always thought was kind of cool, when I lived in Minnesota, my chief meteorologist was a huge Bruins fan, outside of being a Wild fan, of course. But he would always kind of look to me the next day and be like, "Hey, you see what Marchand did last night?" And I'm like, "I sure did." And it was like the hockey culture just had an appreciation for him and what he does for this team, whether it was being a little bit of a punk on the ice, or if he was being a leader. Everybody knows the respect that they should have for 63, and I think it's been great to see.
Yeah, I love it. And a guy even just oddity of him, one of the smallest guys on the ice, wearing that wonky number 63, but shows up every night. Again, it's his determination, his drive, and that is someone we're lucky enough to be in Boston, covering him on the ice, but off the ice too. You know how incredible of a human Brad Marchand is. But again, this is a list of best wingers right now in the NHL. But for him, that his legacy he'll leave behind here in Boston. Number will be retired up in the rafters in the Garden. but is such an incredible person off the ice. He's great on the ice, even better off of it, and he's really damn good on the ice. So that says the type of person and player he is. All right, that wraps it up for Boston has entered the chat. She's Natalie Noury. I'm George Balekji from the PNC Bank Studio. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime, please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. Watching on Twitch, do the same. Email us, thechat@nesson.com as well to join the chat. We'll see you guys same time, same place tomorrow. Have a good one.